You see the message, the notification lights up your screen, you read it, and then you don't reply.
Not because you're busy, not because you didn't see it, but because you choose not to. Maybe you tell yourself, I'll respond later. Maybe you stare at it for a few seconds, type half a reply, delete it, lock your phone, and walk away. Hours pass, sometimes a whole day, and when you finally respond, it's calm, casual, as if nothing happened. Now here's the question nobody asks out loud. Why? From the outside, people assume it's arrogance, or manipulation, or a power move. They're playing games. They want attention. They're trying to look cool. That's the surface level explanation. But psychology is rarely that simple. Human behavior almost never is. Let's slow this down and really look at what's happening inside the mind of someone who replies late on purpose. Not accidentally, not because they forgot, on purpose. Imagine this. You get a message from someone you care about. Your brain reacts instantly. A small surge of dopamine, anticipation, social connection. But at the same time, another system kicks in. Evaluation. What do they want? How should I respond? What does my response say about me? This is where it gets interesting. For some people, replying immediately feels emotionally exposing. It feels like handing over availability too quickly, like saying, I'm here, I'm waiting, you matter more right now. And that can trigger vulnerability. Psychologically, this ties into something called impression management. We all curate how we appear to others, not in a fake way necessarily, but in a controlled way. Your response time becomes part of your identity. Fast replies can signal enthusiasm, eagerness, even dependency. Slow replies can signal independence, busyness, emotional control. So when someone delays a response intentionally, sometimes they're not playing games. They're managing perception. They're protecting an image. Now let's go deeper. There's a concept in behavioral psychology called intermittent reinforcement. It's the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. You don't get rewarded every time. The unpredictability keeps you hooked. When someone replies inconsistently or late, it creates a subtle psychological tension in the other person. You start checking your phone more, wondering, waiting, and ironically, the delayed responder may not consciously know this effect, but their brain understands something instinctively. Scarcity increases value. We value what feels slightly out of reach. So for some people, replying late is a way to maintain perceived value. If they've ever felt ignored, undervalued, or too available in the past, they may have learned, consciously or unconsciously, that pulling back creates more control. And control is powerful, especially for people who grew up in environments where emotional availability wasn't consistent. If you had to work for attention, if love felt unpredictable, if responses were delayed when you were younger, your nervous system may have learned something subtle. Closeness equals risk. Replying late becomes a micro boundary, a tiny act of control in a world that once felt unpredictable. But here's where we need to be honest. Sometimes replying late isn't about power. It's about anxiety. Overthinkers are masters at this. You read the message. You want to respond perfectly. The right tone, the right words, not too long, not too short, friendly but not desperate, confident but not cold. Your brain starts rehearsing scenarios. You type something, delete it, rewrite it, delete it again. Then you think, I'll reply when I know what to say. Hours later, the anxiety grows. Now you feel guilty for taking too long. So you delay even more because now it's awkward. Sound familiar? In this case, replying late is avoidance, not strategy. It's the same psychological pattern as procrastination. The message becomes a small emotional task. And if you're someone who fears judgment, conflict, or misinterpretation, your brain treats that task like a threat. Your nervous system chooses delay over discomfort. Now let's flip the lens again. There's also attachment style psychology. People with avoidant attachment tendencies often value independence deeply. They feel safest when they have space, when they're not emotionally engulfed. Quick, constant communication can feel suffocating, even if they like the person. Replying late gives breathing room. It regulates their emotional intensity. On the other hand, someone with anxious attachment may reply instantly. Double text, check read receipts, because for them, connection reduces anxiety. So response time becomes a dance between nervous systems. It's not random, it's patterned. And here's something subtle most people don't realize. In the digital age, response time has become a form of social currency. Think about it. Before smartphones, you couldn't measure someone's availability down to the minute. Now you can see when they were last online, when they saw your message, when they're typing. We've turned human interaction into timestamps. That changes psychology. Now, replying immediately can feel like exposing your availability hierarchy. If I answer too fast, do I look like I have nothing else going on? That thought alone drives many people to wait. It's not always manipulation. Sometimes it's social self-preservation, but let's not pretend manipulation doesn't exist. Some people absolutely use delayed responses as a tactic, a way to trigger pursuit, to create imbalance, to test how much someone cares. This often stems from insecurity. If someone believes deep down that they're not inherently valuable, they may try to manufacture value through distance. It's like standing slightly out of reach so people stretch toward you. But here's the irony. True confidence doesn't need timing games. Secure individuals reply when they want to, not strategically, not reactively, just authentically. And that's the difference. Now let me ask you something directly. When you delay a reply, what are you protecting? Your image? Your independence? Your emotional safety? Or your fear of saying the wrong thing? There's no judgment here, just awareness. Because once you see the pattern, you gain power over it. Maybe you delay because you don't want to seem too much. Somewhere along the way, you learned that enthusiasm was unattractive, that showing interest reduced your value, so you slow down. But what if responsiveness isn't weakness? What if it's clarity? What if replying when you genuinely want to is actually a sign of emotional security? Psychology shows that secure attachment correlates with consistent communication. Not obsessive, not clingy, just steady, predictable, calm. Consistency builds trust, and trust builds safety. But we also need nuance here. Not every delayed reply is psychological depth. Sometimes people are just busy. Sometimes they need mental space. Sometimes they genuinely don't have the emotional energy. And that's okay too. The key difference lies in intention. Are you delaying because it aligns with your values and energy, or because you're afraid of how you'll be perceived? That's the real question. Think of communication like temperature. Too hot, too fast, can overwhelm. Too cold, too distant, can freeze connection. Healthy relationships find warmth, not urgency, not strategy. Warmth. And warmth isn't about speed, it's about sincerity. There's also something else happening beneath the surface. In a hyper-connected world, constant responsiveness can feel like losing autonomy. Some people delay replies simply to reclaim control over their time. Their phone doesn't own them. They decide when to engage. That's not toxic. That's boundaries. But boundaries feel different than games. Boundaries are calm. Games are tense. You can feel the difference. If you've ever stared at your phone thinking, I'll wait 20 minutes so I don't look desperate, that's tension. That's image management. That's fear-based calculation. If you've ever thought, I'll respond after I finish what I'm doing because I want to be present, that's grounded. Same behavior, different psychology, and here's where it gets philosophical. We live in a time where immediacy is expected. Fast replies, fast results, fast everything. Delaying a response can subconsciously feel like resisting that pressure, like reclaiming slowness in a world addicted to instant gratification. But ask yourself this: are you slowing down from strength or from insecurity? One empowers you, the other quietly controls you. And maybe the most important thing to understand is this: your response time doesn't define your worth, and it doesn't define someone else's worth either. We've attached meaning to milliseconds, but relationships are built on patterns over time, not timestamps on screens. If you recognize yourself in this, if you intentionally reply late, don't shame yourself. Just get curious. What emotion shows up right before you delay? Is it fear? Is it pride? Is it anxiety? Is it a desire to feel in control? Your answer tells you more about yourself than any psychology theory ever could. And if you're on the other side, waiting for replies, remember this: most delays are about the sender's inner world, not your value. The human mind is complicated, defensive, protective, sometimes insecure, sometimes strategic, sometimes simply tired. We're all just trying to navigate connection without losing ourselves. So maybe the real growth isn't about replying faster or slower. Maybe it's about replying honestly. If you want to respond, respond. If you need space, take space. If you're anxious, admit it to yourself instead of hiding it behind timing. Authenticity feels different than calculation, and people can sense it. At the end of the day, psychology isn't about labeling behaviors as good or bad. It's about understanding the why beneath them. And once you understand your why, you're no longer reacting automatically. You're choosing. So the next time your phone lights up and you pause before replying, don't just ask, should I wait? Ask, who am I trying to be right now? That question changes everything. If this made you think a little differently about your own habits, or someone else's, tell me what you noticed about yourself. I read the comments. And if you're curious about the hidden psychology behind other everyday behaviors we never question, stick around. There's a lot more going on beneath the surface than we realize.